inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. Hero Quest. Now with 2 new adventure packs, the legend grows.
Hi, welcome back to Now Your Mother's Hobbies. Today we're working on the Polar Warbear. This is the last minion monster type for the Frozen Horror expansion for Hero Quest. After this is just the Frozen Horror himself. So with this guy, he's looking pretty badass. I really like this sculpt. He's strong, imposing, really cool. Let's get to it. Alright, we're going to do Apothecary White for his fur, or her fur, or their fur. We're going to use this Apothecary White all over the furred parts, and this is kind of like the Yeti, the second type. We're going to get that kind of look, like a soft gray-white kind of look for the fur instead of a blue. I wanted a more grounded white fur rather than a more ethereal or wondrous is what I would call the blue white fur. So we're going with that kind of more natural. And then we're just going to dry brush bold titanium white on top, this killer white. You could use any white you want. You could even, if you haven't got something like this, the shitty craft white is what I would be using. So any kind of white, just slap that on, dry brush it over. And because he's a Polar Warbear, because he's going to be a polar bear, build it up in those highlight areas. You're going to want to do building up on the top of the head and the elbows and whatnot. Do a couple layers. Snakebite leather here for the wood of his club. This is going to give us a nice, bright, warm wood color. Next we have armor. We're going to use Basilicanum Gray, our usual, for our gray armor, our steel kind of stuff. And we're just going to go all around that with the Basilicanum Gray, covering all the armor. So that's the breastplate, he's got some shoulder pads, he's got some scale mail underneath. You could do different colors on the scale mail just to differentiate them, but I figured it would just be fine. Other metallic parts he's got are his wrist guards, his knee guards, he's got a little tasset in the front, and I chose to do some of the wrappings and the little spikes on his club as well. I know in the artwork he's got like a purple little wrapping on the club handle, but I chose to just make it metal. Metal and wood. Gorgrunta fur. You might be surprised to see that these wrist guards, for how thick and kind of ribbed and weird they are not big metal wristbands, but they are leather. And so we're going to use that Gorgrunta for a nice different leather color on all the leather. It'll differentiate it from the club. Here we have Frostheart. We're using that for the tabard. He's got some cloth hanging down on the front and the back. So just put this blue down there, and that'll be his war colors. Pilar Glacier here for the fur trim of his armor. And you can see also, when we did our steel, when we did our metal, we forgot about the chain on his hip. So don't forget that chain, and use that Pilar Glacier for the armor trim. Guilliman flesh here, we're doing the inside of the mouth here. Alright, step 1 of the layering, we got gunmetal, business as usual for all of our metallics. Just layer that on, get it all built up. Remember, if it's in shadow, you don't have to have great coverage because it's going to be in shadow, and we're going to use that Nuln Oil gloss to help tie it together. But if you do want to, go right in and cover it all. This is a cheap time saver. That's why we did the Basilicanum base coat. That's why we're going to do the gloss coat over top. Tie it all together. Paint the parts you see, or paint the parts you feel like painting that day. Nuln Oil gloss here, this is us tying it all together. As well as with any kind of shade, we're also enhancing that detail. Any of the little crevices and grooves are going to get punched and popped and really stand out. So all those little nicks and sword wounds and whatnot, all the little grooves he's got, the scales, that's all going to pop and feel real contrasty and awesome. So splash that all over the metallic pieces that you've already painted. Next up is Frost Hard. We're using this to do a tint. We're going to have a colored metallic. Now you could thin the Frost Hard down even more. I chose not to because I just didn't have the time, or I didn't feel like it. Whatever the reason was, I ended up not thinning it down. But if you wanted the metallic to appear underneath of this even more, there's two things you could do, and one is use a brighter metallic underneath, so something like chrome from Vallejo, or you can thin down the contrast paint you're putting on top, or you can do both. I didn't do either, and I think it still got a little bit of a metallic sheen. I liked it. So just keep that in mind. Those are some tips you could do, but you're going to hit all those little spots. Then we're going in with Black Templar to do some little extra details here, like the paddings of his hand, his little nails. He's also got the lining on the inside of his lip. We're going to try to get that. And his nose. Oh, and his little eyes too. He's got some really deep set eyes, so even for a beginner, this should be pretty okay to do. You should be able to just load up a brush and put a drop right in. First off, in our extra touches is going to be the teeth. So we're going to use this Bolt Titanium White to go in there and make those teeth really shine. We're going to use it instead of Wraithbone because we really want him to stand out. Or at least I did. I felt like everything that would be white on this guy, we wanted it to be white. It also allowed us to clean up that bottom lip. So if you had some trouble with the Black Templar in there, this could be a step where you're able to clean that up and make it fixed. You don't have to sweat it. We're also going to use this for the fur trim on his armor and make that really stand out as well. We're going to use chrome for all of our highlights, make all those ping pang pops. And something you might notice is while I'm doing the chrome on this guy, I'm doing little slashes, little straight lines kind of stacked up, just slice, 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 slice next to each other. And that's because his armor's pretty beat up, and I figured not only would it help me get some interesting texture on there, but if I made a mistake or something, I could add my own little look of scratches and dents and dings. It would just add to that whole look of beat up armor. And something you can do on the actual scratches is to just put a line of highlight at the bottom of the scratch, and it'll look like the light's catching. I'm also doing the little spikes on the club. I chose to make them metal. You could make them into stone because they actually have a rough texture on it, but I chose metal. We're doing Wraithbone here on the tip of this club to make it look like bark on the outside, and then the kind of different colored tree on the inside. We're just covering that with some skeleton horde when it's dry. Then we base coat as normal. Look at that, we're in the finish line here. So base coat is just our paint, texture paint, dry brush, wash, dry brush. There you have it. Polar Warbear all finished up. Looking pretty good if I don't say so myself. You might notice on the tabard here, I did a little bit extra highlight. That's blue #1, like we did on the skin before from War Colors, but you could use any other light blue that you got. I just felt he needed some extra detail in the end. I actually stressed a lot about this miniature because I didn't know which white to do. Do I do the blue white? Do I do the gray white? It really bothered me, really stressed me out because I had to think about the fur trim. If I do the blue white, then what color do I do the fur trim? If I do the pale white, then I do the blue white, etc. Here we can see that we have another style. I chose a brown bear. Yeah, it doesn't fit the whole polar aspect, but when am I going to ever paint a bear? So I chose to really experiment and do something really different rather than go for, I guess, matching theme or color scheme. Besides that, all those questions that I was stressing out about and losing myself over when it came to the polar bear style, they all get answered when I think about the frozen horror and the amount of blues that goes on that guy. What do I do with the fur trim? What do I do with this? What do I do with that? Well, I have no choice with the frozen horror if I want to make things pop, and that helped me to think of the Polar Warbear differently. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments down below, as well as let me know what you're working on, how your journey's going, what you're looking forward to after the frozen horror. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit all those bloops, bleeps, and bells. Check me out on Twitch for video game stuff, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!